Hello, my name is Chris Champion. I am a field safety technician with Acme Safety, and this is a video presentation on benzene. The purpose of this video is to inform the viewers about regulatory requirements concerning occupational exposure to benzene. The idea is to take that information and make your workplace safer and healthier. After watching this video, you should be able to first recall the primary and secondary routes of entry for benzene. Secondly, know the different occupational exposure limits for benzene, the different organizations involved, and recall where to find the information. Third, recall the lethal dosage for benzene. And finally, to know the health surveillance requirements after an employee has been exposed to benzene and recall where to find that information. The primary route of entry for benzene is inhalation. Benzene is a clear, colorless liquid that is often found in crude oil and petroleum products, including gasoline. Secondary routes of entry include ingestion and skin contact.
Next, we'll go over occupational exposure limits. Occupational exposure limits are levels set by different organizations that give guidance on what is considered unsafe exposure levels to hazardous chemicals. The first level is the permissible exposure limit, or PEL, set by OSHA. PELs are different than other OELs because they have the weight of regulation behind them for employers under OSHA jurisdiction. The PEL for benzene is 1 part per million averaged over an 8-hour workday, known as a time-weighted average, or TWA. OSHA also sets an STEL, or short-term exposure limit for benzene, as 5 parts per million over 15 minutes. Our next OEL is the recommended exposure level, or REL, used by NIOSH. The NIOSH REL for benzene is 0.1 parts per million over a 10-hour time-weighted average and 1 part per million over 50 minutes short-term exposure limit. NIOSH REL does not carry the same weight as the OSHA PEL. While NIOSH is a government agency, it does not have the legal weight of a PEL. Hence, it is a recommended level rather than a permissible one. The final organization that develops OELs is the American Conference of Governmental Industrial Hygienists. The ACGIH is not a governmental agency, but historically has played an important role in setting standards. The ACGIH sets the threshold limit value, or TLV, of benzene at 0.5 part per million over an 8-hour time-weighted average and sets a 2.5 parts per million short-term exposure limit over 15 minutes. Next, we'll cover the lethal dosages of benzene. The lethal dose data for benzene has been discovered through animal experimentation and human autopsy. For benzene, the CDC and National Library of Medicine gives the lowest concentration of inhaled benzene that has caused a fatality in the test subject or victim. This is abbreviated as LCLO. Both the NLM and CDC set the LCLO for humans at 20,000 parts per million. Finally, we will go over the health surveillance requirements for benzene exposure. These legal requirements are given in 29 CFR 1910.1028 Appendix C. After an employee has been exposed to benzene, the employer must provide an initial examination, including blood tests, and annual examinations and blood tests thereafter. The purpose of these exams and blood tests is to observe for early signs of anemia and leukemia. All right, in this video we have covered routes of exposure for benzene, which is primarily inhalation, occupational exposure limits from different organizations, OSHA PELs, NIOSH RELs, and ACGIH TLVs, lethal dosages of benzene as given by the National Library of Medicine and the CDC, and finally, the health surveillance requirements given in 29 CFR 1910.1028 Appendix C. Remember that benzene is an extremely dangerous carcinogen, regulated by OSHA. If If you suspect that you or someone at your place of work has been exposed to benzene, report it immediately to your supervisor or occupational health representative. Thank you for your attention. Remember to be safe out there.